And now that I'm thinking about this, how about using simply a built-in toString, built-in default toString, which would include the package name, the class name, and the hash code, right? So just visualize this object by saying convert it to string using the default implementation. All right, so similarly, copy and paste visit elevator, right? Visit elevator, and we can use the elevator over here, right? So this is just to demonstrate that visiting does something in the system, right? So very similar implementation will be just copy and paste this exact type of implementation and write this inside the visitor guest, right? So for the guest, we can say, just do the same implementation, and so we'll see what gets printed when we start testing all of this, right? So again, guest implements visitor, therefore overrides visit for the floor, visit for the elevator. I added some debugging code, some of the printout statements over there. So the floor and elevator behave very, very, in a very simplistic way. They just say, okay, I have a visitor, and I'll let visitor handle all of this. Basically says, okay, this is me, and this is you, and so go ahead, do whatever you want to do, right? So let's, and same thing with the elevator, same exact code. Basically says, okay, I have someone who comes in, just go ahead, do your thing. So now let's go to the main app and try some programming with this, right? So we said that it would be nice to perhaps create a few elevators, right? So we can have an elevator, right? We can create an elevator. E1 equals new elevator. Our objects are not very sophisticated, so we can use default constructors. So we can use elevator E1 and E1 and E2, right? So likewise, we can create floor, right? Floor F1, F1 new floor. Right, and so we can create maybe like 3 floors, F1, F2, and F3, okay? And because these, so these objects getting created completely, very independently from anything else, at the same time we can say, we can construct this array list, which in my view would normally exist someplace in in some other objects, such as for instance building configuration or something, right? Or elevator bank, and there could be other containment requirements. But anyway, anything that I want to be able to visitable, you want to play in a single array list, right? So in fact, let me call this array list of course, it's going to be I element. So I'm going to use this kind of visitables. How about that? Equals new array. Equals new array list, right? So just create an object, array list, and if I want my, so let's fix the imports over here, right? So we got Java util array list in place, very well, and so now we can say visitables add, right? And we can basically add elevator 1, right? and we can add anything we want. We can add elevator 2, we can add floor 1, floor 2, and floor 3, right? So all of these we can add to elements that can be visited by visitors, and then we can, we can say that we have let me see, an employee visitor, right? Employee visitor, we can create this employee visitor, which decides to visit every element in the building, okay? So we're gonna say employee, right? Employee, and create it as new visitor employee. Again, not very sophisticated, using just the default constructor. And then we can have guest, right? Visitor guest. We're gonna name guest, right? New guest. And so we can. So now, if we wanted to decide, regarding the visits or whatever, we just basically we can create a loop like this for each element, I element, right? For each element, in visitables, like visitable places, visitables, I can run this thing to say element accept, right? Remember the visitor, the element has this very simple idea of accepting a visitor, right? So we say accept employee, right? Accept employee, or element accept guest, just to see that everything falls together as expected and that the entire infrastructure behaves in adequate manner, right? So we should start seeing some printouts if we try this example, right? So if I save this, and if I try running it, keeping my fingers crossed that everything behaves. So kind of messy output, but we say, all right, so visitor, inside the visitors, this is my package name, right? This is the package name right here, right? So visitors, visitor employee with its unique hash code is visiting the elevator. So we essentially have our employee and guest visiting one elevator, the second elevator, and then they start visiting the floors, right? So they begins visiting floors, and you can see that both employee and guest visit this instance first, then because of the nature of our simplistic loop, right? So then they're visiting the other floor and the third floor, and so this is all sort of like sometimes when sort of like demonstrates the idea that they can the visitor can visit places in the building. Of course, it all falls down to how this is not probably the way you want to program it. However, you will have collections of visitors, and you will have collection of building elements, and you can certainly run these types of communications. In fact, we can also create an array list of visitors, right? So we can, over here, we can say array list of visitors, right? And these are visitors right there, a new array list, and then we can say visitors, right? Visitors. We can add the employee over here, right? And we could be adding as many as we want of these, right? And we can also add the guest. I'm sorry, guest. guest over there, right? And so instead of specifically hard-coding, a particular employee, we could instead run another loop, right? Loop within the loop, something like this. And so this time we can say a visitor inside the visitors, right? Basically, element accept this visitor, right? Visitor, accept this visitor. So, and let me say source format, right? So, again, you can do it this way if you really want to always at some point in your application make sure that each visitor communicates with each part, and in many situations the visitor may ignore, right? The visitor may ignore certain places. Whereas, for instance, employee may ignore any floor that doesn't match their access card, like some sort of like a smart key or smart card that they use to access it, right? So we can essentially make it more interesting so that basically the visitor begins to really interact with the place that it's trying to visit, and for like 99% of it will be simply ignored by the visitor, but at some point it will say, yes, I want to visit here. So you can see that this gives us the same exact output. So this is now a different type of loop, but you can observe that the output is exactly the same. Right, so we found a way to put together something that, in a consistent manner, allows us to make seemingly unrelated parts in the system, right? Such as guest and employee and other types, which we can very easily add, right? We can very easily add other types of visitors, say implements iVisitor interface, implement what they do when they visit the floor and the elevator. So there's no redundancy at all. Everything seems to be falling exactly in place. And likewise, if you have floor and elevator, you can likewise very easily, go over here and say, okay, if I was able to put together a class such as floor, which implements element, I can create a basement or parking garage or attic or roof or whatever, right? Or in other parts of the building that, like a conference room or something, right? The lobby. So this can grow very quickly, and there is no big restrictions on these new types you want to add. So this is really a quite scalable design, because we can add new places that the visitors can visit, as well as we can keep adding new visitors and simply do whatever has to be done when they supposedly visit these floors, right? So that's just the idea of the visitor design pattern, and we just it's sort of like a coincidental that because we have actually talked about the visitor quite a bit with respect to our semester project, that we kind of recycle this name in this visitor design pattern. So anyway, so the idea is, like I said, the visitor design pattern, and again, just a very short summary on this is that we want the actual code that handles the visit. All of this is like plumbing, right? Placing everything in the collection, creating different objects, having objects, accept, and all this is just plumbing. There's not much sophisticated part anywhere in it. However, the only place where something really interesting happens is that when we go to a specific kind of visitor, like this one, and say, and now we want to program what's going to happen when this visitor visits a specific floor. And we're just magically going to get this, this call is going to happen, and we will decide what we're going to do inside this method. So this is ideal. This is truly very, very modular, object-oriented design. Everything, all the plumbing seems to be well in place, and so that's the focus of this design pattern. So just, the idea is that this works well when you have really loosely coupled, really unrelated types of things, right? So basement is very much unlike the elevator, and so is the lobby, and so is, a specific floor, or, ballroom or something, right? So everything that happens here is just only, the plumbing is done only to allow specific type of visitor to go in and interact with parts of that configuration.